Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about credit card companies again. Now, I previously made a video about how Yoko Taro, the creator of Nier and 2B, voiced his concerns over the rise of credit card companies refusing to handle adult content. That is coming to light again today. Visa came out, made some statements. I was going to make a video about this, but luckily, one of the content creators I follow on Twitter, or X, I guess you could call it today, beat me to the punch. He made a video, Chibi reviews. We're going to kind of go over that, react to it, and provide some commentary.
Head of Visa Japan proudly admits to bullying retailers into censorship, all in the name of brand protection. The man that said this looks like this, and first impressions, he looks like a stereotypical supervillain from a
Giving bald
comic book.
guys a bad name.
If someone told me this was Lex Luthor, I would believe it. I straight up would, because it's like he has the whole drip going on. He has the bald, hairstyle going on. He has that smug smile going on. This man straight up, if you were to tell me this was Lex Luthor, I would believe you, because he does straight up look like Lex Luthor. It's just like, it's so crazy how cartoonishly evil some people can be, and that's
The thing that bothers me most about his picture is not that he's bald or that he looks like an evil villain. I mean, Lex Luthor, yes, I agree with that, but the pinstripe, man, and the pink shirt. Come on, man, have some self-respect here.
basically what we have going on here. So let's get into the main subject at hand, aka this individual right here basically saying he is bullying retailers into censorship in the name of brand protection. Now, this comment here actually is from this post here on Twitter. I became aware of this a few hours ago, and eventually through digging and stuff, I found the Reddit post where this spawned from, and eventually the link to the actual, article here discussing the interview and everything about that. And this is basically what this guy, the head of Visa Japan, had to say. So, Kidney explained that while Visa strives to facilitate legal and legitimate purchases whenever possible, there are instances where the company must restrict usage to protect the brand. Now,
This whole protect the brand to me is bullshit. Do you know how many people all around the world use a Visa or MasterCard credit card to buy who knows all sorts of shit that are probably very sus or very niche in a point that they wouldn't want people knowing what it is that they're buying? I mean, people use these cards to buy all sorts of stuff. And you're worried about protecting the brand over anime and manga that happens to be a little more on the etchy lewd side or just outright adult content? That's bullshit. Do you have this same problem with X videos or Pornhub or OnlyFans, for example? I mean, do you? I don't think you do. Now, this isn't the only time they've done stuff like this. There's a long history of Visa and some of these credit card processors forcing people to drop adult content. Now, over here on Twitter, Madam Savvy stated, Visa continues to lie. I don't doubt they're freaking out over the lawsuit. However, their censor's regime extends further back. Tumblr was forced to bend the knee to payment processors and remove pornography in December 2018. Patreon had sweeping rule changes decimating artists, furries, BDSM, solo creators, and more in late 2017. Unless Visa and MasterCard have time machines, they aren't doing this because of the lawsuit. They also they also offer different rates to large corpos, choke out small business, and buy their competition to make sure they have none, which is another problem with them doing this now because there are no alternatives for these people. As a reminder, you can still buy Diddy official merch with your Visa and MasterCard. Again, people buy all sorts of sussy crap with their credit cards and they don't seem to care. You can still support Hollywood, which is full of actual R and P with your Visa and MasterCard. You can still subscribe to Netflix and HBO Max with your Visa and MasterCard. But if you want to buy some hentai art from Japan, despite it being legal and not depicting anything more than sex, that's a no-no. All I can conclude is at Visa and MasterCard support real R and want to help Rs and their transactions. And I kind of agree with that point. I think she's right over the target with that.
before I even get into the main meat here, protect the brand, it's like facilitate legal and legitimate purchases whenever possible. You're saying that there is illegitimate purchases sometimes? Like, money laundering? Anyways, let's get into the main thing. So basically, restrict usage to protect the brand. What does this mean? Well, this is more or less corpo speak with saying we don't want content that could ruin our image. We don't want content that could potentially get people not to use our said service. I'm thinking to myself, like, I think anyone that has a debit or credit card are not looking at their companies of Visa and MasterCard and be like, these companies are scumbags because they're allowing me to use my money to buy what I want to buy.
See, Visa just doesn't have a brand that, I mean, people don't look at Visa that way. They're not going to hate on Visa because someone happens to use a credit card that has Visa on it or use Visa's credit card processor to purchase porn. Nobody's looking at that. I'm sorry. This is not a problem for people. The only people who have a problem with this are the ones who are trying to shut down porn or trying to shut down hentai, right? Which is anime porn. Those are this all brings me back to the 90s where you had the religious right trying to shut down the violence and blood in video games, Mortal Kombat, for example. And while it's not the religious right today, there are still people who are trying to blame all the violence and things we have in society on video games, and they're still trying to censor video games for things just like that, or sex, sex appeal as well. So
legally. I don't think anyone is getting upset with Visa or MasterCard. In fact, censoring and stopping me from being able to use my own money is actually what would cause me not to like your company. That
yeah,
gives your
exactly.
brand a bad image. So what's fully happening here for those that are
It
not
would be like a bank telling you you can't use your money to buy certain types of content, and that's bullshit. In my opinion, that's bullshit.
actually aware. So basically, Visa and MasterCard and a bunch of other credit card companies have been on a crusade as of late for the last few years in Japan, basically slowly squeezing the life out of certain sites where they can no longer sell products or operate as a site because Visa and MasterCard have basically closed shop on those sites. Now,
Yep.
effectively what this means is that
So in the previous video that I did about Yokotaro raising concerns, Melon Books basically said in the article that based on where you lived, there were certain credit card processors that they used. So Visa happened to be the primary one they used for most of the locations. So when they decided to stop providing this process or this service to Melon Books didn't have an alternative. Now in the UK, they still had one to use that wasn't Visa, but the problem is that only serviced like a certain locale. It didn't service the entire globe for them. So they were losing out on a bunch of money because they didn't have a processor to process all those credit card transactions that potentially would have on a day-to-day basis. And this is a problem that we have with this type of stuff. It gives these credit card processors way too much power. It's a monopoly and should be stopped.
there's a lot of stuff like Melon Books is a recent site I covered that houses a lot of different manga and houses merchandise. It also houses,
Yeah.
18 plus content as well.
Yep.
And the thing is, it's completely all legal, sanctioned under Japan, everything like that. It is completely fine to use and buy in Japan on these sites and stuff. And the thing is that Visa and MasterCard kind of backed out of those sites because they were saying if you do not censor your content, if you don't do certain things that we want you to do, then we are going to remove ourselves from your site and you're not going to be able to make any money. Effectively, like literally this post says, bullying retailers into
Yes, they are.
censorship because it's
And this requires government regulations, government intervention, honestly. And I hate to call for that. I hate calling for government anything because the government fucking sucks. But the government needs to come in and protect the consumers and protect these businesses who are trying to just do legal and legitimate business on a day-to-day basis, and they're being shut down essentially because they refuse to bow to Visa to censor whatever it is they are doing. Visa should not have this power. Not at all. I mean, if we allow this to stand now, what is Visa going to, try to censor and bully next? I mean, that's a problem. It sets a precedent, and we can't let that precedent be set. We can't.
like in Japan, the big go-to credit card companies and debit card companies in Japan is MasterCard and Visa.
Yeah.
Crazy, but that
Hmm.
is the main usage of like a non-cash currency in Japan. And so because of that, most Japanese people, not just let's say people around the world, most Japanese people will instantly be locked out from even being able to buy goods from these sites because of Visa and MasterCard backing out.
Yeah, and he brings up a good point. It is a monopoly. Once Visa backs out, there's nobody else. Nobody.
Effectively strangling these sites and allowing them to not make any money anymore. And so the only options they have is either close their doors, donations, or they bow down to Visa and be like, yes, we will do as you say, master. We will do exactly what you say, and we promise we will never do anything that upsets your company and all that. We will make sure we keep squeaky clean and censor ourselves. That is basically their options. And this has been a constant back-to-back thing that has happened continuously for the last few years. And
So this reminds me of Twitter back in the day. These platforms, social media, Facebook included, had protections provided to them by Section 230. It essentially says they are a platform and they are not responsible for the content published on their platform because they are not a publisher. But the problem is that people are arguing that the fact that they are censoring and curating the content on their platform based on what they want. They are now a publisher. It's fine to remove it if it's illegal content, right? If someone's calling for violence or threatening to kill somebody, stuff like that. That's anything that's against the law. Yes, you can remove it. But outside of that, you're curating the content on that platform. You're no longer just a platform. You're a publisher. So a lot of people were trying to push for redoing Section 230 or stripping some of these sites of the 230 protection. So now, so circling back around to Visa, while it's not exactly the same thing, they are kind of doing the same thing. They are a service that they are providing to these businesses, and they are trying to have a say in the business that these companies take part in, or what type of content these businesses provide to their customer base. And that's wrong. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. They shouldn't have any sort of protections to be able to do that.
In fact, this article does cover quite a few sites that were shut down or forced to censor in their own way, like Melon Books,
Yep.
Manga Library Z,
Mhm.
Dimpasoft, and Tarana. I can't like Taran. I can't pronounce that one. DL site, Fonza, Fantia, Nico Nico. You get the point. There is a lot of sites in Japan that are huge in Japan that are just straight up being strangled by these credit card, debit card companies. And so the fact that we have the actual head of Visa Japan going full blown mask off moment and just straight up saying, yeah, they better bow down to protect our brand image. I'm just like, dude, holy
I
crap.
think this is destroying your brand more than anything else.
Like, they know they have so much power that there's not much that could potentially stop them, at least maybe in Japan. I don't know, because there's been even big creators that have called this out and how worrying it is, like Yoko Taro, aka the creator, okay, the creator
Yeah.
of Nier,
Yep.
2B, 9S, big man in the industry, okay, famous dev, okay, in Japan. He even spoke out about this recently, how dangerous this situation is going.
The government could stop this if they wanted to. They could really stop this because they're providing a service. It's just like a restaurant. I don't think you're allowed to refuse service to people based on certain characteristics, right? So while it's not exactly the same, I do think governments could potentially take that same logic and apply it to Visa.
And how it is going to strangle the freedom of expression and writing and speech and all that in Japan. This is
Yes.
a worrying thing.
Yep.
So the fact that they're just straight up admitting it is some insane stuff, especially when they went on record about 5 months ago saying that no, they're not censoring things, they're not doing anything to these sites, it's some middleman
Oh, they
doing this.
were. They
Now
knew they
it's
were.
very clear that that was a load of bullshit.
Yep.
It's very obvious at this point. One of the big things that does need to be talked about here is that what could be theoretically done. Well, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to assume that some of the things they've been doing definitely break some laws, maybe antitrust laws, maybe some form of laws.
Lawsuits need to be done, legislation needs to be done. I mean, this needs to be pushed. Even if the lawsuits fail, hopefully it gets enough publicity that lawmakers in Japan and the US do something about this. I mean, that's their only option because Visa's not going to stop this unless they have the threat of some sort of legal action or law essentially being passed that they have to worry about.
In Japan, they're definitely doing some form of crooked stuff. Let's just be blunt here. They are being very anti-consumer,
Yes.
and they are strangleholding the
They are being crooked. So look at it this way: there was a website called Right Stuff Anime. It was bought by Sony slash Crunchyroll. When it was bought by Crunchyroll, all of the adult content that they had on there that was related to manga, anime, just any figures, right? Any adult content that was on there, they took it off the website. And what they ended up doing was I don't know if they did this or if another company reached out to them. I don't know all those details, but it was put over onto a website called Buy Anime. So here's the website right here, Buy Anime. Okay. Any of the adult content that was on Right Stuff Anime is now here. This is, I'm assuming it's US based. I don't know, but it's adult content. And I would imagine they have credit card processors that process all the credit card payments. I've used my credit card when I bought stuff from this website. In the US, we have laws that protect people and companies from certain CP allegations when it involves anime, right? Anime or drawings and stuff like that. So the law is record keeping for visual depictions of actual and simulated sexually explicit content. That's one of them. I think there's maybe two or three more, but So if you look at a FAQ at Buy Anime's website, they have an exemption statement. All animated visual depictions displayed on this website are exempt from the provision of 18 USC 2257, 2257A, and or 28 CFR 75 because they do not portray conduct. They do not portray conduct. They do not portray conduct. Look, there's protections in place for these companies. Okay. If it's fictional, if it's a drawing, it is not considered CP. Now, the only time that would not work is if you were, from my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but this is my understanding of how this works. If you were to make a drawing of a real life person, that could still be considered CP. But if it's a fictional person altogether, fictional environment, fictional universe, and you want to show, booze and have lewd content, etchy content, or outright hentai, it's not considered CP. I mean, Japan, I would imagine, has similar laws to this. So it is a little hypocritical because these sites have credit card processors processing these payments. But yet over in Japan, Visa seems to have an issue processing the same type of content.
Market to where if you don't follow what they want, you're not going to be able to make any money. You're not going to be able to operate even in Japan. And so this is a very worrying thing because a lot of people like to say they'll just do piracy. That's not the point here. This is the very source in Japan being strangleholded. This isn't.
You can't resort to piracy for this. That's not going to solve the problem because what's going to happen is these people are going to still lose out on money if you're pirating the content, and the source will stop producing that content. It'll disappear. It'll dry up because they can't produce content if they're not making money. So piracy is not the answer here.
A Western thing. This isn't something that's happening like in Europe or America. This is straight up happening in Japan. And this is obviously companies that are outside of Japan strangleholding the market. And I think one of the big things that this is doing as well, it has some relation to a story I covered recently about a week and a half ago with the whole Sony debacle, with Sony potentially buying, Kadokawa. And I found out in that video, and I even talked about it, that apparently Japan passed some laws to where companies outside of Japan can now buy up some other.
I think Japan is slowly self-destructing. I really do. I think they're slowly self-destructing. Stuff like this law that he just talked about, and then the immigration and stuff, they're slowly allowing more and more immigration in. And then they're bowing down to like the Western ideals when it comes to DEI and stuff because they're being influenced by their branches they have in the West, or they've actually outright moved their headquarters from Japan over into the West, like Sony. So I think they're slowly self-destructing. So the culture and just the greatness that have drawn a lot of people into anime and manga that Japan has created, I think is slowly dying. A lot of that stuff is going to end up being very similar to the Western animation now, which is going to be bland. It's all going to be the same. I mean, just think about it. I did a video about a manga that a guy created where this woman had the ability to turn back time as long as she changed her underwear. It was tied to her panties. I mean, seriously, could you even see someone in the US being allowed to come up with some sort of idea like that? No. It's that type of content that people love coming out of Japan because nobody would even think to do that. It's unique. It's awesome. Whether you like that or think it's dumb, yeah, it may not be for you. That's fine. But there will be people out there that enjoy it. I'm one of them. I love this content, man. You would have to get pretty freaky for me to be like, yeah, no, I'm out. Pretty freaky. And that's what people love about Japan. And what's happening here is slowly killing that. It is slowly killing Japan. In Japan, they might be doing it to themselves.
Companies. In this case, it's very clear that whatever laws are being passed in Japan is allowing these companies outside of Japan to slowly put their tendrils and everything and take control and force Japan to do certain things that they normally wouldn't do. That's clearly what's going on here. So something's got to be done. Obviously, I'm not completely aware of every law within Japan because I don't live there, but this is very worrying when you see stuff like this. I think that this is obviously very anti-consumer, and credit card, debit card companies have no business stopping someone from using their own money. Because let's just be blunt here. When you get a card, debit, credit card, okay? Let's be honest here. If you've used one, you don't care about the brand image on there, okay? You're like, you're a vessel for me to deliver my money to what I want to buy legally on these sites. That's it. You should have no other role. The brand image, that's absolute bullshit. For such a essential product, for something that is so essential to daily life, that just like, the fact that they can straight up censor.
And see, what he said there is correct. These things are essential to daily life right now. Until we get like the little barcodes in our hands or something, or everybody's using crypto, credit cards are essential. So back in the day, you had cash. People would buy things with cash. Then we slowly moved over to checks. I remember writing checks out to people to pay for things. Now everything is credit card. Credit cards are so essential to the daily life. These people have way too much power if they're going to be allowed to bully people and have a say in what these people are able to produce when it comes to the businesses that they run. Just imagine Visa going to the service station that my dad used to work at when I was a kid, and they would say, no, you can't change tires. You can only work on mufflers. You can only work on radiators. You're not allowed to change tires. You're not allowed to balance tires. You're not allowed to do anything when it comes to the wheels of a car. And if you do, then we're not going to provide you with our credit card payment processors. That's what I'm talking about. That's the power that these companies have, and they should not have it.
Like this and force these restrictions is astronomically insane. I cannot believe that this is being allowed to happen in Japan. I have heard people tell me that apparently there's some form of investigation in these card companies and stuff recently. I don't know if that's true.
So that investigation has to do with real porn. So from my understanding, it has to do with they're being sued or investigated because of certain either underage content or R-type content, non-consensual type content that was allowed to be uploaded to like Pornhub and some of these porn sites. And I think Visa must have been part of the issue because Visa provides credit card processors for a lot of things, right? So they must have been providing it for these sites. That is my understanding of the lawsuit. They are a defendant in these lawsuits. They tried to get their name removed from it. The judge wouldn't allow that. That is my understanding of it. So it has to do with real porn, not anime adult content. So when they say protect the brand, I think they're using this all as an excuse to go after things they don't like while still providing the services to other things that probably a lot of their friends still partake in.
Not, that's through word of mouth, so I'm not going to say like that's 100% accurate. That's just what I've been told. And if that's indeed the case, then I'm glad there's an investigation. Now, this investigation I think is happening in America, so I don't think that this might have an effect maybe in Japan, but I still, these card companies need to be reeled in. There's definitely some corruption going on here, and this man is definitely in the heart of all of it. I mean, this dude, holy crap, Lex Luthor looking man, like insane. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this because obviously this is a follow-up / update to the ongoing controversy and issues within Japan with the whole censorship. This is wild stuff. Like, I cannot believe the mask-off nature of this head of Visa Japan to actually do something like this. But, I'll leave it at that. I wanted to talk about this.
And Sony kind of does the same thing when it comes to censorship. They'll let, like, The Last of Us 2 had this sex scene in it. I mean, full top and everything, and it was essentially, it was like guy on guy, really, but it wasn't. It was a girl in one of the positions, but it didn't look like it. So they let that go. But then they'll censor like a lot of the anime games, like Senran Kagura and stuff like that. I'm really surprised that Stellar Blade was able to be released the way it was, but it wasn't. It's not technically anime. It just, I don't know why. It's when it comes to censorship, Sony seems to have a thing for anime, and I think it's dumb. I think it's dumb. So anyway, that's the video, guys. Let me know what you think. Go check out Chibi Reviews. Subscribe to his channel. He's a good content creator. I follow him on YouTube and X. So go check him out. I'll put the video down in the description. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you agree with this? Do you support Visa? Are you against Visa in this case? And yeah, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll talk to you guys next time.